I remember the sound before I remember the face, a sharp, impatient tap of a pen against the wooden railing, not loud enough to interrupt proceedings, but just enough to reveal something restless, something unsettled. I have learned over decades on the bench that the smallest sounds often carry the heaviest stories. That morning, I did not know that a simple traffic ticket would unravel into something far greater than law, something that would challenge even my own understanding of justice. But I felt it. Before a word was spoken, I felt it. I have presided over thousands of cases, speeding tickets, parking violations, minor infractions that most people treat as inconveniences rather than turning points, paperwork cases, routine cases, the kind that pass through the courtroom like wind through an open window, noticed for a moment, then gone. And I have always believed in consistency, in fairness, in the idea that the law must apply equally regardless of emotion. Because if it does not, then what do we have? But every so often, there's a case that refuses to stay inside the boundaries of procedure, a case that asks you, not politely but insistently, are you applying the law, or are you understanding the person? They called her name, Amina Rahman. I looked up, and I saw her standing there. She couldn't have been more than 35, wearing a simple blue scarf, slightly wrinkled, as if it had been adjusted too many times that morning. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, fingers interlocked with a tension that betrayed her calm posture. But it was her eyes that held my attention, not fearful, not defiant, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying something you don't talk about. The charge was straightforward, speeding, 75 in a 50 zone, no prior violations, a clean record. On paper it was simple, a fine, perhaps a warning, case closed. But as I looked at her, I felt something I could not explain, because people who break rules out of carelessness look different. People who break rules out of indifference behave differently. This was neither. I adjusted my glasses slightly. Ms. Rahman, I said, do you understand the charge against you? Yes, Your Honor. Her voice was soft, controlled, careful, not rehearsed, careful. And do you contest the charge? A pause, just a small one, but enough. No, Your Honor. Now I want you to think about that for a moment. Most people, when faced with a ticket, will argue. They will explain. They will negotiate. But when someone simply accepts it, that is not always compliance. Sometimes it is surrender. I leaned forward. Then tell me, I said gently, why were you driving at that speed? She didn't answer immediately. Her grip tightened slightly, and then she reached into her bag, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out something small, a photograph. She held it in both hands, not for me, for herself, as if it anchored her. My son, she said, and just like that. The room shifted. Now I have heard that phrase before. My son, my daughter, my family. These words often appear in courtrooms as explanations, but this was different. I asked, what about your son? She looked down at the photograph, and I could see her throat tighten before she spoke. He has a heart condition. The words were simple, but they carried weight. He had an episode that morning, she continued. I was told to bring him in immediately. Now, here is where the law begins to draw lines. Emergency vehicles, authorized transport, protocols, rules, and here is where life refuses to follow them. I was driving him, she said. I didn't realize how fast I was going. I looked at her, and then at the officer. The officer stepped forward, professional, composed. He confirmed the speed, confirmed the stop, confirmed that she was cooperative, but then he hesitated, just slightly. And I noticed, because hesitation in a trained officer means something. Officer, I said, is there anything else you would like to add? He cleared his throat, and then said something that changed everything. When I approached the vehicle, he paused. There was a child in the back seat. The courtroom became still. He was pale, barely conscious. And she kept saying, he looked at Amina, then back at me. She kept saying, Stay with me, baby. Stay with me. I want you to think about that, not as a line, but as a moment, a mother, driving, watching her child fade, and being told to slow down. The officer continued. I escorted her to the hospital. That was not in the report. And why was that not included? I asked. He looked down. Because, technically, the violation had already occurred. Technically. There is that word again. You see, this was no longer about speeding. This was about something far deeper. This was about the gap between what is written and what is right. I looked back at Amina. Did your son receive treatment in time? She nodded, tears now quietly falling. Yes. And how is he now? Another pause. Longer this time. He's alive. Not he's okay. Not he's recovering. He's alive. And sometimes that is everything. But that was not the part that stayed with me. What stayed with me was what she said next. He asked me something. In the car. Her voice broke. He said, "Am I going to die?" Silence. And I told him. She swallowed. I told him, "Not today. Now I want you to really sit with that." Not today. A promise, made in fear, driven by love. And that promise came at 75 miles per hour. I leaned back slightly, and for the first time that day, I did not see a defendant. I saw a mother. Now, here is where the system expects a decision. Fine or no fine, penalty or warning, procedure or exception, but I have learned that sometimes the most important question is not what rule was broken, but what would have been broken if it wasn't. I looked at the officer again. Did she show any sign of reckless intent? No, Your Honor. Did she attempt to evade you? No. Did she comply? Yes. I nodded. Then I looked at Amina, and I said something I rarely say. Tell me the truth, not legally, humanly. If you had slowed down, I paused. What do you believe would have happened? She didn't hesitate. Not this time. I would have lost him. No drama, no exaggeration, just certainty. And that was the moment where everything became clear. This was not a case about speeding. This was a case about a choice between a rule and a life. And I want you to think about something. If you were in that car, if it was your child, if you heard that question, am I going to die? What would you do? Would you check the speed limit, or would you press the accelerator? I let the silence sit, because sometimes silence is the only honest response. Then I leaned forward. Ms. Rahman, and my voice, for the first time in a long time, softened. You were not driving recklessly. You were driving urgently. A pause, and there is a difference. I picked up the file, looked at it, closed it. This ticket, I let the words land, is dismissed. The room exhaled, not loudly, but collectively. And let the record reflect, I added, that sometimes the law must move. At the speed of compassion, I saw her shoulders drop, not in victory, in release, and as she left, she held that photograph again, tighter this time. Now you might think that is where the story ends, a dismissed ticket, a grateful mother, a quiet courtroom, but it doesn't end there, because later that day I sat alone, thinking about systems, about rules, about how often we forget that they exist to serve people, not the other way around. And I thought about that boy in the back seat, asking a question no child should ever have to ask, and a mother who answered it with action. Not today. I have ruled on countless cases. Most fade. But this one stayed, because it reminded me of something simple, something we all know, but often forget. Justice is not just about enforcing rules. It is about recognizing moments where humanity must lead. And sometimes, the most powerful decision a judge can make is to understand why someone chose love over fear, and refuse to punish them for it.